Sean Spicer, Chief Strategist, Communications Director for the RNC. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You got all these numbers running through your head.
We do.
First, take Pence's point.
Yeah.
It's time to come home. Is there evidence that that's happening, Sean?
Yes, there is, and we need more of them to come home. The stakes are too high. I want to associate myself with the governor's comments. There are too many things at stake, domestic, foreign policy, Supreme Court picks. Republicans have to understand that there are only two choices in this race, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. The federal judiciary itself is enough of a reason to understand that contrast. We will change the trajectory of this country for a generation and beyond if we don't make the right choice. It's time to change Washington. Donald Trump and Mike Pence represent that change.
But still, I get this email blast at 5:13 yesterday afternoon about a hashtag Never Trump. And they're all talking about down-ballot candidates to make sure you go out and support your Republican senators. And nothing on that email, Sean, talks about Trump.
Well, no, and there are some that are not on board yet. But again, we're seeing continued growth in Republicans to come home. I think if we can get more, that helps us get to that 270 number that we need on Election Day.
I'm looking at early voting. You have good news in Ohio.
Yeah, we do.
White share of the vote's up 3 points from 4 years ago. Black share of the vote is down 7. In Florida, mail-in ballots, Republicans lead Democrats so far. But typically, you lead in that number anyway, don't you?
We don't. Early vote is where Democrats do well. We do very well on Election Day. Republicans tend to show up. Democrats need to do very, very well.
I'm talking about mail-in ballots.
Right.
I'm not talking about in-person voting.
I understand that. There's absentee ballot and early vote. So you look at Florida, we have a lead when it comes to both absentee ballots requested and returned. We are up a total of 850,000 Republicans that have requested ballots from 2012. Democrats are down. You go to Iowa. In the last 5 days, we have led the number of absentee ballots returned. Democrats are down about 82,000. They need a huge lead in Iowa to win. They're not seeing the numbers to come through the way they did in 2012. Nevada, Dems are down 3,000 fewer ballots than they had in 2012. Republicans are up. North Carolina, Democrats are down 17,000 votes, fewer ballots in the first 5 days of early voting than they were in 2012. Republicans up 15,000. Our people are coming, are showing up.
Let me slow the roll for just a moment here. Early ballots, again, in North Carolina are lower than they were 4 years ago.
Well, we're getting more low-propensity voters. We've got about 15,000 people who don't traditionally show up but are registered to vote, actually either voting in person or voting absentee. That's important. Remember, Democrats in North Carolina alone, Barack Obama had a 300,000 early vote lead going into Election Day, and Mitt Romney carried that state because Republicans showed up on Election Day. So if we can cut into their early vote of Democrats in some of these key battleground states, that portends very well for us on Election Day. And we're seeing that trend, Republicans up, Democrats down in almost every one of these key battleground states.
I can go shopping for more good news for you, or I can shop for more good news for her. African-American vote in Georgia is down compared to 2012 levels. We'll see what happens with the millennial vote also. But you mentioned Florida. Numbers show equal number of Democrats and Republicans had requested early ballots.
No.
4 years ago, you were up.
We're up absentee,
you were
barely up in the early vote.
17 points by that same statistic 4 years ago.
But again, as I've said, we added 850,000 new folks have requested the ballot. Now we've got to chase them in the remaining 14 days and get them to do. They also have a bigger lead in that first day of early voting. We've closed that gap, and we'll continue to do that going forward. So both on the absentee ballot and on the early vote, we're much better positioned from where we were in 2012. They're not. Now, the other point that you just made that's interesting, she has an enthusiasm gap, whether it's with the minority voters, women voters, with young voters. There's a problem that Hillary Clinton has right now with getting those people out to vote. When you look at the disparity between where we are in enthusiasm, the Trump movement is what, and that message of change is, I think, what's going to help propel us in each of these battleground states to go over the top.
Okay, one more point. Nevada officials there say Clark County's had a record number turnout so far. Democratic stronghold. We'll see which way that goes. Overall, what do you believe the state of the race is as you examine the millions of votes that have already been cast? What do you think it is?
I think it's a very, very close race, and not just nationally, but in the battleground states. The difference is this, and this is what's going to come down to. Donald Trump's a message of change. He's going to bring a difference. Hillary Clinton's been around for 30 years. If you're not with her now, the odds of you being with her are not very good. Independents and late-breaking people don't break with the incumbent that they've known for 30 years. I think we've got to continue to get out there, talk about that message of change, talk about the contrast threats that exist, whether it's national security, immigration, health care, early childhood care, all of those issues are a big difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
Come back in a week, okay?
I will
Sean
be here.
Spicer from the RNC.
Thank you,
Sean. All right, Martha, what's next?